And we are live here on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. I am Jeff, aka Grounded Geek, and it is the podcast is real, really live here with World Gun Geek. We are so glad to be back. This is our second episode of season 4. Now that we've gone to a bi-weekly format, but we're grateful to be back for episode 2. We've got a great guest for you tonight. We're going to have a recap of the Cleveland Gaming Classic. Lots of fun that we had there. And it's all tonight on this episode. We'll see you in just a minute. And then for you guys who are watching live, that's where I would break the podcast to play the music, which we're not going to do. But I am going to bring. Please welcome Utah and Aaliyah to the stage. Welcome. See, everybody who watches live gets to see the behind the scenes stuff.
That's right.
This is the cool stuff that you guys miss on the podcasts if you don't come watch us live. Although we absolutely love you guys on the podcast. We're grateful that you're there.
Absolutely.
Because that's primarily our audience's podcast. We'd love to get you to come to YouTube and see us live and actually interact with our guests and us. That would be fantastic. Unfortunately, right now there's one person in the audience, but that's great. We're going to see who else.
Unfortunately,
when I say unfortunately, I say it because it's probably my other stream, like my monitoring stream.
Oh, gotcha.
If it is a real person, I'm absolutely grateful that you're there. It's not unfortunate in the slightest.
Very fortunate.
If it's just my monitoring, then hi,
massive fortunate, big time uber fortunate.
Exactly. Well, hey guys, welcome. It's great to see you guys. This time I didn't have to wait so long to see you guys. Just saw you guys Saturday. We were all at an amazing
Saturday
event, Cleveland Gaming Classic.
Oh yeah, Cleveland Gaming Classic. Kudos to Tom and all the crew that put that together. Wow,
it was a great time.
Phenomenal.
My goodness,
phenomenal
so well
event.
done.
So well done. It's the first year. It was 3 days. The first night was a preview night for all access and VIP. That was a lot of fun. DJ stuff all night. People got into the games right away. A lot of the vendors were still setting up during that time because that's kind of what it was for. But we still got to meet a lot of great people that evening. I didn't expect to see cosplayers that early, but there are already cosplayers there, which was a lot of fun. And then Saturday was really the main event, right? That's when everything started up.
That's the big day. Yeah.
Well, it was the main event because you guys were there, right? Because
is this more shade? Wow,
that's a good thing.
That's
I'm
right.
saying like all anybody could see before that was me, and then Saturday they're like, "Whoa, Utah and Aaliyah are there," and it's like
Saturday
now
was
it's
a triumvirate.
It is
the triumvirate, the triad, the triangle, the.
Oh gosh! Guess who the one viewer was? My daughter, Rachel.
Let's go, Rachel.
You know I'm grateful for you, so you don't have to worry about that. That figures though. I truly did think it was my monitor feed, but all right, there was a human being on the other end of that.
Let's go, Rachel.
Very much, and now I feel terrible.
My goodness gracious! All right, thanks. Good night.
Yeah, that's it. That's it for us. Sorry, Corey. Well, maybe next week. I've disappointed my daughter.
Retry. Just redo. Kidding. That's it. Just run it back.
Tell us, give me your rundown. We'll start with you, Aaliyah. What did you think of the Gaming Classic? This was. You were with me last year. Utah, did you come out for? I think you might have missed that one, right?
I missed last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was just
totally
you
missed it.
And me, Aaliyah. What did you think of the larger scale and the bigger event? What did you like about it?
Honestly, I truly loved everything. I really enjoyed. You touched on it a little bit, but I really enjoyed just being able to actually meet with the vendors, and everyone was so polite and friendly, very welcoming. And one of my favorite things is just being able to see how big the geek community actually is. And I think, sometimes we just stay in our little bubbles or we meet each other on Twitch or wherever, but it is so nice just to be able to see everyone in the same place, appreciating the same things, even across all ages, kids, well-seasoned folk. It goes across all it goes across all ages. But outside of that, I will say that one of my favorite things was the cosplayers, and I really appreciated all of the gaming that they had. So me being younger, not necessarily being as acclimated with like arcade games or some of like the old school retro games. um i I really appreciated that. I think that that was like just really cool to see. I love seeing kids playing and having appreciation for retro stuff. So
Yeah, I never even thought of. I never even thought about that. That that's true. The whole arcade gaming sort of thing is just doesn't exist
you're on
anymore,
mute,
right?
Jeff.
Jeff, you're muted. And
Probably for the best.
but like Jeff and I, when we were at college, we would many trips across the street to Flamingo Arcade where we'd be dumping at dollars, tens of dollars of quarters into various machines, X-Men especially.
A lot into X-Men.
But yeah, like that whole experience, that whole thing just doesn't exist anymore with consoles being as powerful as they are, gaming computers and multiplayer online and all that. I didn't even think about that, Aaliyah. That's a really great point, that a lot of these younger kids probably had no idea what it was like to go up to an arcade machine and just play, or a pinball machine. Oh, those pinball machines were fantastic.
Yeah,
I
Anyway.
mean, they have a similar experience at Dave and Buster's and stuff. They're trying to do that, but
You did it again. There.
No, I did. I had to cough.
Oh, you were coughing.
Thanks for drawing attention to it. I tried to do it all subtly, and now everybody knows. No, I'm kidding.
Jeff was coughing. Jeff was coughing.
But yeah, it's a little bit different in the Dave and Buster's. It's a lot more kind of like a spectacle, but in different types of games, and everything is like tickets and like plushies and whatnot now.
Yeah.
But yeah, to just drop a quarter in, play, and then drop another and another and another. And another. Now they didn't have to drop
line up the quarters.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't have to
they
drop
didn't
quarters
do
at the convention, but it was still kind of that same arcade experience. You're playing right next to other people playing other games, all the sounds at once. Like that experience is just, it brought back a lot of memories for me. I'm sure it did for you as well, Utah.
Oh, and absolutely. I also really wanted to say that they had small pinball machines for the kids. And I think that that was just, honestly, that really is one of my favorite things. Also, when I think it was me and you, no, it was one of the interns. We was walking to go meet Utah in the line of the BattleTech and see Jeff on stage because Jeff was doing his thing. There was like this little girl and she had that vest on so that way she could go through the little obstacle course to try to get all of the Velcro.
Oh yeah, the Power Play or
CGC
whatever that was.
Power.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was a play on the old video Power TV shows.
TV show.
Was other Nickelodeon shows, Double Dare,
Nickelodeon,
Legends of the Hidden Temple was kind of an homage to all of those. Yeah, that was the first year they did that too. This was like the brainstorm that they had becoming. It was fantastic.
It worked out great.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I just loved it. I really loved seeing the kids playing. Even if they have no idea what it's from or why, they just really looked like they were having a great time.
Utah, tell us about the BattleTech, because I think that was kind of a big experience for you. You're the only one of the three of us that got to do it. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So the two biggest things that I really wanted to do at CGC this year was meet Tim Misney, which unfortunately didn't happen. I hope everything is okay with the Misney family. There was a family emergency, so he couldn't show up.
Yeah.
But then also do BattleTech. And BattleTech, thank goodness I was able to do it. The last time I did it was back in the early 90s, back when it was a thing. They actually had BattleTech centers, they called them, where they've got these pods with a kind of a magnified 3D display in front of you, and you've got other displays. It's like a little cockpit where you can control a mech. You've got a throttle to your left and a joystick and triggers and buttons for weapons to your right. And all it is a bunch of people sitting in these pods, piloting huge mechs, trying to blow each other up for 5-10 minutes. And it was fantastic. It was just as good as I remembered. I had a blast. Literally had a blast. I came in second, which was great because somebody had admitted in our group that they had played before and was chomping at the bit to get back into it. I'm like, oh, okay, we've got a ringer here. We're all screwed. But it was a wonderful experience, and they were ahead of their time. That was like the first time it was kind of an immersive experience before VR, before AR. and also multiplayer, because back then the centers, you could have matches with up to, I think, 20 people, 20
Oh,
mechs in the
wow.
same arena playing at the same time. And they had different types of games, like they had team games. We were just doing kind of a deathmatch thing where it was every person, every mech for themselves. Um, and so that was a blast. That was a great visit to my nostalgic kind of video gaming past. It was a blast. And I forgot that they also print out like mission reports at the end. And what was fantastic was I had forgotten that they kind of do, like, every time there was an event during your match, somebody gets blown up or whatever, then a little note gets put in on your mission brief. And they have things like, this was before AI, by the way. So you hear things like, the burning wreckage of Kelsey's Hellspawn is a reminder of all of the prowess of Utah's battle skills. That happened 24 seconds into the match.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff like that, but it was a lot of fun. And all the pinball machines were so great. There's the video games. It was really awesome, and I hope that it's in the same spot next year, because I think they were successful. The attendance was great. It wasn't very crowded, which was nice too. The vendors all looked busy. So I think this is a really great trajectory for this convention, for this show.
Yeah, and
they've already picked the dates for next year. At least they told the vendors. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it out loud. I haven't seen it in public anywhere
Okay,
yet,
well,
so maybe I won't say it.
Mute yourself.
No, yeah,
No,
that'll be helpful. Oh, here we go. No, that's 2023. Okay, I was just looking to see if there was a public announcement before I said anything.
no, you probably shouldn't say anything.
It's still multiple days, though. It seems to be the plan. So it looks like
Good.
everything's according to
Nice.
gonna be repeated, and hopefully BattleTech will be back. All that kind of fun stuff. That'll be fantastic. I do want to mention. So we had a booth, which was awesome. We got to get involved in some of the other activities there. There were a lot of indie devs. We gave out some awards. I say we, like War Gun Geek did it, but the CGC did. I got to be a part of that. That was kind of fun to see some of these folks win some awards. One of the award-winning games gave me a copy of it.
Oh, nice.
Connected Clues. They won for best party game, and they gave me a copy because it's something that we can actually play on the show. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, they want us to use it for game night. I invited them to come back. So when they come back, we're going to do a game night with them. It's kind of a fun little party game that we can play it from here. Like, you don't have to have cards in front of everybody. Like, somebody could just run the cards and everybody can still play. So it's
neat.
It's really, yeah. So it works out perfect for something like this. We could Twitch it and involve the audience and everything. So they won. Cool. Yeah, there were some really great games there. Couple of them coming on the show. Mole Maiden, you can wish list that now on Steam, but it is a great little kind of Metroidvania kind of Scott Pilgrimish feeling art style with like comic, looks, where you're a little girl turns into a drill, and the game mechanics on it are really cool. I played the demo.
Mole as in like
Mole Maiden,
underground.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And I tried the demo with the keyboard, even though it explicitly told me that a controller would be the best experience as it started up, and I was miserable at it. So I know that a controller would be better, but it was really the game mechanics were kind of clever. So I think that that one most fun, I think, or something, was one of the things. So it won an award. They're coming on the show. There's a couple of other games. We'll talk about them as we get closer, because they're coming on the show to talk about them. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
And then,
what about the one that I really liked? I can't even think of what
I don't know which
Dark-
one that is. I don't.
Darkness?
Oh,
No, Absence of Light.
Absence of Light.
That won best art direction or something. It won something, and it is fabulous looking. It's a really, really cool game.
They had a really nice display.
That's another one you can wish list on Steam. So both Mole Maiden and Absence of Light, check them out on Steam. They're both very fun to play, and they're wish listable right now. They're not available for purchase, but you can get it on a wish list. That'll help them out a lot. Even if you end up getting the game, it helps them, get that promotion out there and more wish lists that it does have. So go ahead and do that. That'd be great. But the last thing I want to mention is that at our booth, we went to raise money for Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital through our favorite charity,
Yes.
Extra Life, which
Yes.
was great. We had some Mario Kart challenges, which was kind of amazing. I don't have the board in front of me, but someone named Jacob did Rainbow Road SNES in like 133.
130.
No,
Yep.
130.
No,
133 was
130.
the one
133.
above it that
Correct.
was his friend. And apparently it turns out he's like second in the state in Mario Kart. Like there's this
What?
whole nationwide guild or something, and
It's
they're
like a
part of the
league?
Ohio
Yeah.
league, and he's literally second in the state. So once he set that record, nobody else donated because nobody wanted to try to beat it. Like we kind of
Well, there were-
sabotaged our own. Yeah,
No,
a lot of people
Ryan
came back to
did.
well, Ryan was sure
there.
he could beat it, and he came back. So hopefully, we were hoping people would be like, "Yeah, I can do that." I think eventually
Ryan
people
came
were
back.
like, "Yeah." But we made a lot of money for Rainbow, which was good. It was a good opportunity to do that. We do want to remind folks that that's coming up in November, the 24-hour marathon. Utah and I are still working on when we're going to do it for sure.
Correct.
Because that weekend is busy. But we are still doing a marathon, and that weekend I may actually be doing some stuff with Green Dragon Inn in Akron for
cool.
the event. So we may be doing some live stuff right there at that venue to raise money, and then Utah and I will do the 24 hours a little bit later. Hopefully, trying to coordinate that together. But you do want to check that out. It's at extra-life.org. You can get more information. You can do your own 24-hour marathon to raise money for your local children's hospital just by playing games. It's like a 5K or a marathon that you can do from your couch. I love it. That's the
Yep.
So get out there, check it out. Underneath right now, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, if you're watching us, is how you can donate.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, you can actually donate there. But if you want to play, you can also go just cut it off at participant/grounded geek and put that URL in. And then, or actually you can go there, click the World Gun Geek, join our team. 'Cause that way, everything that you raise helps the whole team. So it's kind of great, but then you can still raise it for your children's hospital. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so there you go. Extra Life, check it out. It's great. If you're a gamer, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's a do-it-yourself. It's a do-it-yourself fundraiser. You can help the kids just by doing something you already love to do. Probably already have done many times, playing 24 hours in a row. Some people, when I tell them, they're like, "Yeah, that was last Tuesday, I think." And I'm like, "All right, great. Well, now you can do it for the kids." So it's
I was
awesome.
trying to think of a word that rhymed with gamer and no brainer, but I was too slow.
I saw your brain working there for a second. I was trying to finish what I was saying. They let you get it in there, but then that was a fail.
Yeah.
So that was what all happened this weekend. Lots of stuff going on. It was a very exciting time. Can't wait for next time. But tonight we have a special guest on the show. I was not prepared. Hold on. I had it up on my screen just a second. But remember, I had to restart my computer because my camera wasn't working. And now I'm unprepared.
Oh, yes.
Utah, say something.
Something.
You know what I'm curious about is how.
You can always count on Aaliyah. Thanks a lot, Utah. Go, Aaliyah.
You told me to say something.
No, I'm curious about how you guys stay up for 24 hours. Obviously, it's a great cause. Don't get me wrong. But just like if it's a normal, regular Tuesday, right?
Regular what?
Regular.
I'm looking that up. Actually, we've got an author on the show. I'm going to ask him if that's an actual word.
Oh yeah, is it an actual word? Or do people just just make it up? You know, people say it all the time. Regular. Or do I say it?
Literally, this is the first time I've ever heard anyone say it.
Oh, so it's a me thing.
It's definitely an Aaliyah thing. No, maybe it could be a family thing. There are families that have their little sayings, right? It may be a generational thing. Maybe all the kids are saying "degular" now. Rachel, are you still in the chat? Are the kids saying "degular"?
Is "degular" a thing?
Rachel, help me out. Don't let this just be an Aaliyah.
Okay, Rachel says she's heard it before.
She's gonna side with Aaliyah no matter what. I feel like.
We've got a couple people. Amani says that she's also heard that before.
They've heard it before. You guys are great. All right, look at that.
Did you say Amani? Is Amani in the chat?
Amani.
That's my
She's
best
heard
friend.
it. So is Rachel. All right, you're
Let's
vindicated.
go.
We're just old. We're
fine.
old fogies. I admit it. It's all right.
Do people still say on fleek? Is that gone?
I don't think people say that anymore.
That's not a regular degular thing anymore.
but saying it's
Is it
not a
just
regular
is it
degular
just
thing
regular?
anymore, Utah. No, but
No,
it's
it's not a
but
Just
it's
regular.
it's lit. I know that much, right? Is that
is
a
it
thing
lit?
Oh
still? It's
no. Oh
see this is
no.
this is how this is
Oh
how we make
no.
those phrases go away, Utah. Is as old people we use them in
As old
regular
people, we use them.
conversation, and
Gotcha,
then
gotcha,
people are
gotcha.
like, yeah, that I guess that's done now.
Oh
Hmm.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rachel.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, I'm joking. I'm kidding. Those are okay. Well, regular, degular. There you go. I was wrong.
Wow, that's
All
heavy.
right,
I dig it.
cool. All right.
Your daughter said yikes.
Yep, I know. I saw that. All right. So now that we have used that to pass the time, today we have an author who's a master of mysteries and horror who also wears the hat of a history professor. His unique blend of historical knowledge and dark storytelling creates a captivating narrative that transports readers to both the real and the imagined past. With a passion for westerns, science fiction, crime, fantasy, and more, his work transcends genres. He's the author of The Hangman Feeds the Jackal, a Gothic Western, and his latest release, The Promise of the Plague Wolves, which I actually had a chance to read, and it's phenomenal. He is Coy Hall. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hey. All
welcome,
right.
Coy.
We're
Thanks
glad
for
you're still
joining
Thank you.
with
us.
us after all
Thank
that we
you.
put you through for the last 20 minutes there.
It was lit.
There you go.
There we
Hey,
go.
that's just the
Yes.
regular, degular show that we do here. That's just how it works.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's just how it goes.
All right. Well, Coy, welcome. We'll get in deep into the book here in a little bit, but it just dropped a couple weeks ago, just a few, not maybe a week
Like
ago,
on the
right?
12th, right?
The 12th, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Promise of the Plague Wolves. How long has that been, gestating and finally is out for everyone to see? Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
It's your baby, right? Isn't that how you think of it as an author?
I don't know
Yeah,
if I
well,
like the word gestating.
a lot. It's been a long time. I actually the character and it's Doran Toth, and
Yeah.
he's the main character, and he has this greyhound named Vinegar Tom, and they actually appeared in my first book. It was called Grimoire: The Four Impostors, which came out in 2021, and there was a story in that book. It was a collection of 6 stories, and it was a story called The Nightshade Garden, and it was set in Hungary in the 17th century, and that's where those characters came to be. And I wanted to create a kind of a series around him as an occult investigator, and so the
Oh
Oh,
no.
I think his connection froze.
2022.
Yeah, I think your connection froze there, right? As you were telling us, you said that you were going to make it a series.
I so I wanted to make a series by him as this occult detective, and I turned in the manuscript for this in August of 2022, and it's a long, long wait. So it was 13 months before it came out. So
Wow. Wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, you sent me an advanced copy. I got to read it, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much for doing that. And
thank you
it
for
was
reading.
great. I mean, and I'll be honest, like I read a lot of authors. I try to get on the show, and they'll send stuff, and it's okay. I mean, there's some good stuff out there, I mean, but it's you can kind of tell, maybe they need a little bit more work or a little bit get a couple more books under them or something. But man, I dug right into yours, and I could just tell that this was something that you do. Like this is your thing, and the attention to detail and the history, because I really like alternative history type stories.
Yeah.
But when you introduce these characters, Doran Toth and the dog is my favorite character, Vinegar Tom. I mean, he's a whole personality. It's just like he's one of the best characters. And the whole time I'm reading it, I felt like there's got to be more. Like I wondered if it was part of a series I was missed. Like I only jumped in because I only met you online here, and there were more books. But I guess so. There was just a short story beforehand, but there's more to
Well,
come.
yeah, there was one short story before that, or before the novel in Grimoire: The Four Impostors, and then in a collection, an anthology called Fiends in the Furrows, which is a collection of folk horror. Um, I have Doran Toth story called Herald of the Red Hen, and then this novel. So there are 2 short stories, and then the novel. And I want to do at least 2 more novels. The next one's going to be called The Vile Saint, and it's going to be set in 1687 in France.
Okay.
Mm.
And then the
Mm.
third one is untitled, but I'm going to take him to Port Royal, Jamaica, and have some piracy
Oh
and
my gosh.
and
I'm
yeah.
a pirate fan. I love cowboys and pirates. Like I would love a mashup between those, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like
That
both
sounds
of
like a
those.
movie.
Well, I mean,
Cowboys and
let's
Yes.
face it.
pirates.
My favorite Assassin's Creed game is Black Flag. It's just by
That's true.
far, hands
Yeah, I
down.
agree.
And then
Hands
Red Dead
down.
Redemption is my favorite game of all time. So if you combine those two games into a book, I would be all over that.
Well, and I think well, what's interesting about that is, piracy is contemporary with a lot of things that you don't think it's contemporary with, like the Salem witch trials
Mm,
occurred in the same year that the earthquake destroyed Port Royal and that pirate
Mm.
nest there. So I mean, and both in
Oh.
1692.
interesting.
So they're actually contemporary thing. Like Blackbeard is just 17 teens, so he's just a generation after Salem.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And
there's
so
room for all that occult stuff to come
yeah,
up.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
I
Wow.
actually I really love the characters Doran Toth and like I said the dog. Can you tell everybody just give a little bit of background on that or the organization that he's a part of because like he's almost like I mean I don't want to say John Wick but you know how John Wick has that like whole society of assassins and stuff. These guys all have dogs, I think, right? Is the impression
Right.
I got.
That's the
Um,
gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about this organization he's a part of and why he's doing this.
So I had to make something up there. And the short stories, I didn't have to do that, because it was you just kind of thrust him into the action there, and it happens. And with the novel, I felt it needed some type of glue to hold it together. So I created this organization. I had this idea of it's called the Order of Saint Gwynfort. And Gwynfort is a saint that is what you would call a folk saint. He's not an official saint, but it's from the 13th century, and this is real. This is not what I made up. And he is a greyhound. The Catholic Church has a folk saint. I mean, it's not official, but it's a greyhound, and its name was Gwynfort, and it was in 13th century France, and it was people went to it for healing and things like that. And in that time, and so I had read this book called The Holy Greyhound, and I thought that was just a great idea, this whole legend of this, the dog saint. And so I made up this organization called the Order of Saint Gwynfort, and all the occult investigators, this is like the secret arm of the church in that time. So the Pope's just sending these guys around, and all of them have a greyhound with them, and these are like special greyhounds. They're not screaming when you touch their butts and stuff. They're not like that type of greyhound. They're like tough, mean greyhounds.
Yeah.
And they have what Toth always says, and it's his courage. Vinegar Tom's his courage. But so yeah, you get to meet two of them in the book. The older brother of Saint Gwynfort, Abelard, he has a dog named Godfrey in it. I think there's the only two in the book, but I'm going to bring more in future books. You're going to meet other investigators and their dogs.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked the most about it was that little bit of backstory. It's just enough to like tease. It's like it grounds it in this reality that there's a bigger world of this going on. And now I'm like, okay, now I got to meet some of these other people. But obviously, these two, are the ones that you kind of fall in love with. And Vinegar Tom is like a hero in this book. Like he's. You can tell that you're a dog lover, and I know that if you go to your website, it's clear you have a dog. In fact, I think your dog may even make a cameo appearance in this, or at least an avatar that represents your actual dog. Is that true?
Very thinly veiled, yeah. But the dog that he meets, and this dog is going to become part of the series too. It's a Great Pyrenees. So I have a Great Pyrenees, and I'm obsessed with Pyrenees dog. I just love them. So, and I had to put one in the book. My dog's named Duncan, so he is the whole model for the dog in the book, whose name's Bassina, and he's a boy, and the dog in the book's a girl. That's the only change.
That's the only.
So the name change, and it's a girl in the book, but essentially it behaves like this dog. And yeah, so but that's going to be part of the series too. So it's going to be Doran Toth with the Greyhound on one side and the big bulky Great Pyrenees on the other side.
That's fantastic.
Sounds like
So,
fun.
so you mentioned, how some of the things like Saint Gwynfort was like a real or folk saint, but it's actual history that exists.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about your journey from being a history professor to a horror and mystery author, because I honestly, like, again, I like I've said, I really enjoy alternate history, and it makes me go and look up things like, what is that part real? Did that really happen? And it's like it's like clear that you know your stuff, like you've done your research, like because I looked up Saint Gwynfort, I looked up some of the different, like, kind of demon names in the books that you reference and things like that, and they're real books and they're real, like, things that people have written about, and you integrate that in there, and it makes you wonder, okay, so wait, did this actually happen during the flood of
Right.
times? What?
Yeah.
So tell us how which came first. Were you always a writer and then went into history, or were you always into history and then became a fiction writer? What kind of, how did that happen?
First, I was a writer. I started writing when I was in my young teens, and uh, that was what I wanted to do first. And so I wrote my first novel when I was 18, and it's the worst thing that ever exists. It's called Asylum of the Incubus, and
That
nobody
sounds
will.
great.
It sounds like a sci-fi original movie or something, but um, and it's worse, like significantly worse than a sci-fi original movie. Nobody's ever going to see it ever. It's going to be
Oh,
this hidden
Oh
thing, but
no.
no, it's
oh,
nobody wants to see it.
oh! What if we want to see it? I'm,
It's
I'm,
bad.
I'm
My,
very
s-
curious.
yeah, well, I,
You-
I'm
you-
not gonna burn the manuscript. I'm gonna keep it for nostalgia, but it's never gonna see the light of day. But so, but what it was, I was writing, and then I was interested in history as well. And believe it or not, it took me a long time to put those two together and think, maybe instead of trying to write contemporary stuff and compete along those lines, maybe you should combine those interests and set the same stories that you're writing and set them in these eras and in the past. And my favorite era to study is the 17th century, the 1600s, and that's what mainly what I studied when I was in school. And so that was one of those things that, unless you're talking about the Salem witch trials, it's not really an era that is written about often. But it's interesting because there's like one foot in the Middle Ages and has one foot in the modern era, and there's this push and pull of modern and ancient ways of thinking. And that was the really the first story that I did that combined those two interests was called Sire of the Hatchet, and it was in Fiends in the Furrows 1, and it was the folk horror anthology. And that ever since I've been writing stories, set in that period, and sometimes I'll go back to the Middle Ages for stories, and sometimes I have a crime novel coming out in November, and it's set in the 1950s. So sometimes I'll go.
Mm.
That's about as modern as I'll get. Maybe 1960s, but nothing more than that.
Now, so what
Mm.
draws you to, what do you think it is that draws you to the doing it in the historical rather than a modern times? Like, is it just
Well,
more interesting for you? Is it
you
the
know what
modern
I
times are scary enough as that is without
no
adding the
no
supernatural?
no I feel like what drew me to it is my favorite genre to read is science fiction. And my favorite author is Philip K. Dick, and
Mm.
I obsess over that. And I love 1960s science fiction. Like that's the pinnacle of all writing, as far as I'm concerned. I love it. And um, what when I first started writing, I would try to write science fiction and be kind of derivative of Philip K. Dick and Harlan Ellison and stuff, and I couldn't really find my own way of doing it. But I like the world building of science fiction, and so if you write something in the past like this, which is in Austria in 1686, this novel, it requires world building because it's not a familiar
Mm.
thing to
Mm.
people. So I feel like I get to exercise that world building with historical fiction. And the stories you tell, the plots are the exact same if it was set, in modern times. I mean, they function by beat. The story does the same as contemporary fiction. It's just the world building kind of tricks you into thinking it's a different type of story.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have any like methodologies or um like things that you do to really get the ideas flowing? Do you have like a notepad and pen
Yeah.
and just write out different things or
Yeah, my ritual is, and this is like the only ritual I have. I always buy a new journal, like a new notebook. It's like one of those nice notebooks, like a leather notebook.
Like a moleskin or
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I get that at the beginning of the process, and I think of this is the idea book, and I just free thinking, write anything that comes to mind, anything. Um, that I absorb in my daily life. If I'm reading a book and I think I like that word, I'm going to put that word in the book. This is an unusual word, or it just any idea just that comes to mind, and I just fill this book up with ideas, and the book takes shape in that notebook, and I kind of build it from there. That's
Oh, neat.
the only method I really have.
You mentioned Philip K. Dick as an influence. That was another
Yeah.
question I was going to ask was, are there other authors that have also kind of influenced you? Who do you read on a regular basis? Kind of.
My absolute favorite authors would be Philip K. Dick, and I like other science fiction writers too a lot. In that time, one of my Roger Zelazny, and like Lord of Light, books like that,
Hmm.
and Raymond Chandler is one of my favorite writers. I like crime fiction from the
Ah,
1940s and 50s. I see. I like the science fiction for the imagination, and I like the crime fiction for the voice, the strong voice of people like Raymond Chandler or David Goodis. He wrote "Shoot the Piano Player," and these 1950s noir novels set in Philadelphia, um, and Dark Passage. If you like Humphrey Bogart,
Hmm.
if you're a Humphrey Bogart fan of his movies, he made a film version of David Goodis' novel Dark Passage. Um, those are things I like. And as far as horror, my favorite would be M.R. James, the ghost stories of M.R. James. I like the older stuff like that. Um, I love his ghost stories, and he was a medieval historian too. So he's like one of my idols. That he
oh,
was a medieval historian and a writer of ghost stories. And to me, he's the greatest author of horror fiction ever.
That's
I'm
I
not
cool.
love it.
familiar.
No, I'm not
M.R.
either. I mean, I've heard the name, but I've never read anything by him. And
Is probably
now you've got me curious. I'm looking it up already, like
he
what I
wrote
can order.
well, the BBC back in the 70s used to have the ghost stories for Christmas, and they would always use an M.R. James story.
oh, okay.
And so, I mean, yeah, his famous stories would be like the ash tree and Casting the Runes, maybe his most famous story. It was made
Hmm.
into a film with Dana Andrews in the 1957 called Night of the Demon. And
Oh, oh, I remember that.
I know
yeah,
not. I've heard of Night
Interesting.
of the Demon.
yeah, and that's a adaptation of his work. But
He's got a lot of collected stuff on Kindle because it looks like some of it might be in the public domain.
I
Because
think a
they're,
lot of it is in the public domain.
yeah,
Yeah, it's over 100
cool.
years old. So
Wow.
I gotta
Oh,
add
wow.
I,
this to my list now to start
I
reading.
did. I did notice on your bookshelf you've got it looks like a Black Mask magazine collected
right,
work
yeah,
there. So that
right,
makes sense. The crime fiction
yeah.
continuation there.
Oh, I'm obsessed with pulp fiction, like actual Pulp Fiction, not the Tarantino movie,
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
but Black Mask magazine, and any of that stuff from the 30s and 40s, those short stories, I love it, and that's been a big influence on me, really. I love like hard boiled writing, like it's like
Mm,
so tough,
right.
like um. I don't write like that. I don't imitate that, but I like it. It would be like a caricature. I'm the farthest thing you can be from a tough guy, but like the I love like the private eye stories, like
Yeah, exactly.
Dashiell Hammett, the Maltese Falcon with Sam Spade and stuff.
Yes,
They're just obsessed over those things.
that's so cool.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Have you read Alfred Bester, The
Yeah,
Demolished Man?
Oh, we
I've read
just read, yeah,
Yeah,
the
Oh
we
yeah,
just
demo.
that one was good.
Alfred Bester's. I love him, and The Star Is My Destination.
that was a fantastic.
And but The Demolished Man is incredible, and
That's
that's a
what makes
big.
me think of when you said like the kind of it's a
Well,
really
yeah,
interesting mix of that detective style and
yeah.
like sci-fi. Good
And
sci-fi.
he's a big influence on Philip K. Dick. I mean, he
Mm.
was early 50, mid 50s, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
55 or something, maybe around that 53. I think on The Demolished Man was 1953, and right when Philip K. Dick was still writing short stories, and
Right.
before he got into novels.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love Bester. Yeah.
So
Who else do you like as a side? If you're
so
interested in reading science fiction, I'm curious about that.
yeah, well, so the reason I mentioned that one is some friends of the podcast have another podcast that's a friend of this podcast called Promptly Written, and one of them is an author who's written several books, and then Matt is a short story author. He's a friend of ours, and they do a podcast together where they take a prompt from their followers on Facebook and stuff. Usually Utah. It seems like it's a lot of them in there. I've had a few. Like yours usually win though. It seems like if you want to hear, but they get a prompt, and then the two of them over the next month will write a short story, and then they read it on the show, and they talk about the writing process and how they, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're great, and some of them they're like, well, I only had 30 days. This is what we had, But I think they're all pretty good considering, and they
Absolutely.
they also do occasionally will read a book together,
Mhm.
Yeah, book
and
club thing. Yeah.
yeah, and we do a crossover episode usually in May or March, it's an M month,
March.
near
I
the
think it's
beginning.
March.
I think it's
Yeah,
March,
yeah, yeah. March.
where we all do write the short stories with them. So we all five of us do
That's
it,
fun.
and we read a book together. And the Demolished Man was
the
the one
last
that
one.
we had read.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I love him a
No,
lot.
it was
I
Pale
really love.
Blue Eye, wasn't it?
Oh,
No, I'm
that's right.
sorry.
No,
That was
you're
the
right.
first one that we did together, and
The first one we did
crossover.
was
You're right.
The
My bad.
Demolished Man.
The Pale Blue Eye didn't have as much of an impact as the Demolished Man did, apparently.
Yeah.
But I loved it
No.
because it's that alternative history. It's all about Poe getting involved in a murder mystery. Like that was pretty amazing. So that was another good one. But
The book was better than the movie. That's all I got to say.
it
Very
sure
much
was.
agree.
We did both because we're the kind of the movie side and they're the book side. So we.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. As far as like, I mean, my all-time favorite author is Stephen King. I adore him. I discovered him at a very young age, probably younger than I should have been to read Stephen King, and I've been hooked ever since. I really like Neil Gaiman. Those are kind of more, modern. Those are authors that are still alive. I love Lovecraft. Not all. They're hard. They're harder to read. Some of them.
Yeah.
Than some of the more popular stuff. But yeah, that kind of I'll read just about anything though. But yeah, The Promise of the Plague Wolves, it was right up my alley. I thought that was a really, and I want to warn people. Let me just throw this out there. I told we talked about these amazing dogs and this cool investigation, and I don't want people to think that it's just about like these sweet dogs that are really cool. There's a lot of like horror going on in this thing too. There's a lot of, scary stuff and it's a little body horror and some things like that. But that was also quite good. It's about the plagues and some really, really creepy, scary creatures, which were really good. Oh, you've got a visitor.
Speaking
Speaking of the
Something-
cute dogs.
something. Oh,
And the fact that
that's the
the fact that
Pyrenees.
he-
There, here he comes.
some
wait,
spirit
the fact
opened
that
the
he
door.
just walked in and was like, "This is
He's like, they mentioned the dogs. I better come in.
yeah."
Yeah.
Like,
And again, we love you
This is-
podcast listeners, but you're not
Hi.
seeing
Oh,
the
what a
beautiful dog
sweetheart.
that we're about to get a glimpse of here.
oh my goodness.
He's a big one.
Oh,
No
he's
apples for you.
He's a 160-pound baby.
Dang,
Wow.
he's a big
yeah.
dog.
That
Just
is
a
good
big
size
Bubbas.
dog.
And he's not. He's being for some reason camera shy right now. He's
Oh,
just off
Jeff
camera.
mentioned that he makes an appearance, a cameo appearance in your book, but I want to say that he makes a lovely cameo appearance in the YouTube video you did, "The Journey into the Macabre," Volume 2,
Right.
which I found very entertaining. So
Right. So I did those for this. I'm gonna shut him out of here. By the way, he's
He didn't like
Hey,
that
Duncan.
boy.
he's doing his round of woofing that he does each night. But for the school that I work at does every October does like wanted me to come up with this thing for like a scary story type of thing. And it was during the pandemic. It was like right during the height of that, so we couldn't do
Oh,
anything
geez,
in
yeah,
person. So I had
that's
to think
right.
of something to do. And I'm not the most charismatic human being on camera, so I was thinking
Oh, please.
I'm gonna make my animals do stuff on camera because people will be looking at the animals and they won't be looking at me. And so in the first video, we have Benji the cat, which actually was my sister's cat. We went to her home and filmed just for use of her
Oh,
black. She had a black cat, so I was like, we got to go
oh, that's great.
we got to go after the black cat. And he sits behind me in that one. This is volume 1 of Journeys
Yeah, he
into the
sits on top
Macabre.
of the chair. Yeah.
Yeah, then just the whole thing, and he rips down decorations during it. And I swear
So
to you,
cute.
so he does that, and in that moment, my entire being is just saying, "Do not break character." I don't look because I know it's golden. I know he's ripped, and he's just like, because you just hear stuff crashing behind me, and I'm just Vincent pricing it still.
Just laser focus.
That's hilarious.
And just absolute turmoil inside. At that time, like, damn it, do not break and look back. And like behind my wife is behind the camera and stuff, and she's laughing. And in that
Oh,
moment,
she's like,
there's this very subtle thing. The camera shakes.
oh, I have to go
The
back.
camera shakes. I mean, it's
All
so
right.
subtle, and it's because they're behind the camera laughing. So to make it even worse, I'm looking at them laughing, and they're both
Right. So you've got
laughing.
it. You're getting it from both
It's
sides.
my sister and my wife were like side by side behind the camera here, and I'm just trying not to laugh.
That's
Like,
I'm going to go back and watch for that
give
now.
me 30 seconds, but it's just it's just a little wobble. And then in the second one, I couldn't top Benji. He's just it was too impressive and it worked
It
too
was
well.
very cute.
So I was like, I got to get the huge dog in here and to do something, and he's too lazy to actually do anything. And so I'm like, I want to make him jump on this table and grab an apple. And what the hell does he care about an apple? So I was like the apple sitting up there, and we just kept doing it, and he would just walk in there and stare and walk off. Walk in there and stare. We're just sitting there kind of coaxing him toward that. Get the apple. Get the apple. Get the apple. And we try that for like 30 minutes to get him to jump. And finally we come up with the idea that to rub steak fat all over it to get like steak grease on the apple. So it's like this nasty apple sitting on the table, like staining it, and it's just sitting there glistening. And it looks like it's like a cartoon apple or something. But it's steak grease, by the way, if you watch that. It's
Oh, there you
the
go.
camera,
Oh, and
the
Duncan
camera
went.
trick there.
Duncan
And
went for it too.
and the first time he jumped up there, and he's so huge, he's like, boom, onto the thing, and the whole camera and everything shakes because of doing. So I added like these like alien sci-fi sounds to it, like he's this creature attacking.
They say you shouldn't
It's
work with
very
children
great.
or animals, and I think that's why they're gonna make it difficult for you.
I have to retire from the Journeys into the Macabre too, because I can't. I don't have any more animals.
I know what's next.
I can't
can you
top
top-
it.
How can you
I
top
know.
that?
Yep. Yeah, but you live in West Virginia. There's plenty of animals out there.
Like just
Oh.
wild animal. Yeah. Just go out.
Just
And, just
Grease
me
up
like
a couple more apples and lure a mountain lion in, and just
go like
Just
you should go out and frolic with deer.
yeah. Just
You
kind of
know,
Blair
in the
Witch it with your
film.
phone and
Yeah. Just it should work. Get a lot of ticks.
yeah,
Be nice.
that's for sure.
talk about a horror story.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'll
yeah,
think about it. Yeah.
you Aaliyah brought that up that you are from West Virginia. Aaliyah and I are both from West Virginia as well.
Oh,
In fact, I grew up in Huntington for until my 7th grade year. Moved to Boston for about half a year, and then I was in South Point, right across the
right.
river there, for until I graduated high school. So, and
Yeah,
Aaliyah,
but
you weren't far from there, right?
Oh, I was far from there. I lived in Branchland, which I don't think any of
Oh,
you are familiar with.
yeah. Well, it's not
It's
a
no,
like
huge
I'm
an
not.
state.
hour. No, it's like an
No.
hour, about an hour and a half away from Huntington.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. Are you familiar with like Milton area?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I went to Cabell Midland for high
Okay, so you're
school,
not
but
That's
too
not
far
far.
then. Yeah,
no, that was
same
when I
county.
transferred.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, when I
gotcha.
transferred, but I went to
Oh,
I
Lincoln
guess.
County before that. Are you familiar with Lincoln County?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Just
I
don't
was
ask me
out.
to point it out on a map. But yeah,
That's okay. We don't need that. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
I can. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
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 So, were you born and
Lincoln.
I've heard of
raised
Lincoln.
there in Huntington, Coy, or is that?
No. No. I actually not far away. I was born in. My dog keeps barking. He's very upset. But I was
It's
born
all right.
in Kentucky, and moved here. My wife went to school at Marshall, and
Mm.
so that's why that's my connection here. So that's why
Okay.
I hopped state lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
My
welcome.
Marshall. I grew up on that campus. My mom retired as she worked at the library at Marshall almost her
Library.
whole life. My whole life at the library. Yeah, as
Interesting.
head of the
Yeah.
cataloging department, and that's where she retired
Interesting.
from.
Yeah.
So she was a single mom, and so I literally lived in that library. It's the reason I love books so much today is because I grew up in that
Well,
library.
I thought it was odd too because that's not something we knew about one another, but when you reached out to me, so because you asked me, what part are you from? And I was like, well, it's Huntington. And I was trying to explain where it was. And you're like, I grew up there.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain, but
Yeah, I
but
went.
I thought it's small world. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went to
No.
Miller Elementary there in Huntington. I lived on Utah Place. We were within walking distance to the park. Yeah, Utah didn't live. It
Yeah,
That
you
wasn't
wasn't.
me.
didn't.
That was my first exposure to Utah. Was Utah
Right.
Place.
Place.
Spelled
Wow,
it's
that's so ironic.
well, it's spelled even more different. So it was
That's right.
EUTAW or something like that.
It was like
if I
sounded. It
remember.
was like phonetically sounded out,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
but
Yeah.
it meant it was like fate that I was going to eventually become friends with you, though. Obviously.
And then there was another Utah in your life that came back
Yeah.
later. Yep.
I wonder, did I have any Jeffs or Utahs? I don't know. I don't think so.
That's too funny. But yeah, that's really cool. So, do you teach at Marshall then, or where do you teach?
No, in Kentucky at Ashland Community College.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, spent a lot of time in Ashland too when I was
Yeah.
in South Point. It's right across the other bridge.
Right. Yeah.
South Point, we claim, we're there's a little sign on the edge of the river that says if you stand here, it's the only you can see 3 states at once.
3 states. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. It's like, oh look, there's West Virginia, there's Kentucky, and if I
And
turn
I'm in
around,
Ohio.
there's Ohio.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, too fun. That's awesome. I lost where I was. We started waxing nostalgic about Huntington, and now I'm like lost my place. Oh yeah, so when you're teaching, so how do you balance your academic life as a history professor with your creative life as an author?
Well, what I try to do for me, writing every day is important. So I have to have continuity day to day, especially with big projects like a novel, because that could take writing the first draft of a novel can take 2 months. Writing it every day, and I have to have that continuity. And so what I'll do is try to make a habit out of it, and I'll do it at the same time each day. I'm naturally a morning person, so I get up and I start writing around 5 o'clock in the morning, and I write until 7. So I write 5 until 7 each day, and that's it. It's 5 until 7, and then go on with my regular day. But I devote those 2 hours to writing each morning, and then that makes it pretty easy to balance that way.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Now the
the
other books,
discipline.
yeah,
Wow.
the other books that you have mentioned um, were short story collections. Is Promise of the Plague Wars the first full length novel then, or is there another?
The Hangman Feeds the
That
Jackal
was the okay.
is my first novel, and then so the a Plague was the second novel. The other two are short story collections.
Yeah, I actually mentioned that in the intro, and then asked that question anyway. So there you go. Shows how much I was paying
Those are
attention to
my
myself.
first
Full
published
circle.
novels too. Yeah, but writing is one of those things that you see the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more under the water. So I think before my first published book, I had written up to that point 6 novels that were
Oh
unpublished.
wow.
Mm.
Wow.
And just as practice, like that one I was talking about when I was 18,
Oh,
and
the yeah.
and so I have this on these old files, and I kind of think when if I ever hit a dry spell, maybe go rework one of those old novels, and so I have the
Hmm.
stack of
Yeah.
novels, to work with, but I'm not going to do that just yet. So
Stephen King has talked about that. I think in one of his, because he likes to write about writers a lot.
right.
They say write what you know, and there you go. But
There you go.
I think it was oh gosh, which one was it? There was one, I'm blanking on the title of it. Takes place near a lake, and it's a novel. But in it, it's a writer, and he has like a trunk with a bunch of his like of books that he can pull out whenever the publisher's bugging him for something that he
Yeah,
and he's
that's what
not finished what he's working on. He's like, well, here's one I have kind of in the
that's what
bank.
for him. That's what Pet Cemetery was. It
Yeah,
wasn't a. I think he had back in like '83 or whatever. He had a deadline, and so he just picked up Pet Cemetery and finished it. And I think it was that's what they call trunk novels, And
yeah,
so
yeah,
That's fantastic.
that's what he did with Pet Cemetery. Yeah.
yeah.
Was that Dark Half you're talking about?
No, no, it was. I'll find it out. I'll look it up when after when there's
Dark
a
Half is the one
break
that
in the.
I
That's the
think
one
about
where
when there's an
he
author.
is
Yeah.
his alter ego
Yeah,
writer,
alter
his
ego.
pen name
Yep.
comes after him basically is like
Yep. Yep.
so he was imagining Richard Bachman, I guess, was going to come and get him or something. And I think that was what inspired it, because somebody forced him out of that because they
Using
recognized his
that.
writing and
Mm.
said, we think you're Richard Bachman, and he's like, doggone it. It's like fine, which I
Oh,
think
well.
is a lot better than how I think J.K. Rowling did it, because I'm pretty sure that she released the first whatever it is, Robert Goldthwait, or I forget, not that's Bobcat Goldthwait. What is it? It's
Bobcat
Gilbraith or something.
Gilbraith, yeah,
Gilbraith?
something.
Yeah, something like that.
She released that first novel, and it didn't do very well, and then somehow it leaked that
Somehow it
this
got
is
leaked.
really J.K. Rowling, and the next thing you know, it sold like 1 billion copies
Blows
the next day.
up, yeah.
So I don't know. Richard Bachman was selling books even when Stephen King, they didn't know it was Stephen King. So at least he's got that going for him, I guess. But not as many as Stephen King. But now he just throws it on there for fun. Like he still wrote like 3 more Richard Bachman books well after everyone knew. And so it was just kind of fun. So
I like Stephen King quite a bit too.
yeah,
I like his earlier stuff best. I think
sure.
my favorite is
agree.
probably The Shining is probably my
Oh
favorite of
gosh,
his novels.
you nailed it. That's like,
Don't get him started.
oh my gosh. So The Shining is my all-time favorite Stephen King book, even though The Stand
Me
is probably,
too. Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I'll be
probably
back.
very much, yeah. The Stand is very much, one of the greats, and everyone says that's number
Obviously,
one.
yeah.
But The
yeah.
Shining is, for me, that was one of the first books that I remember being scared to death reading. Like movies
Yeah.
scare me easily, right? Because it's visual, there's music, there's all this. But I remember reading The Shining and literally being like, I'm done for the night. I'm just gonna
That
I'll come back to that later.
100%.
Yeah.
The hedge
100%.
the hedge animals scared
Exactly.
me.
Thank you. No one,
Like they
and
kill.
that's what Kubrick took out of it.
I know it's
But
not
when
in the-
they
yeah, it's
start
not in that
moving in
movie.
the book, my
I know.
imagination was just
I'll
worked.
tell you one thing that scared me. Another thing that stands out in that novel in my memory are the wasps. The
Yes.
wasp
Yes,
nest.
yes.
Another thing
Like,
Kubrick cut.
Yes.
yeah.
Two amazing things that never made it to film.
Yeah. And I love. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I love the Kubrick film. It's a great movie. It's just a terrible
It's not the
adaptation
book.
of the book,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
On its own, it's a very scary, chilling movie, but not even close to what the book, uh, you know, put forth in terror. For me, I think is
Right.
still way scarier than the book, or than the movie. So anyway, but yeah, Stephen King. Yeah, exactly. Don't get me started on that. In fact, I love it. I love it so much that Matt, the other guy I was telling you about from Promptly Written, he and I are starting a Stephen King podcast where we're going through the Dark Tower series and all of the Stephen King extended universe that are connected to it. So
To the Dark Tower. Yep.
that was
Very
a little
cool.
plug for that. So be looking out for that, guys. It's coming out in
Yeah, yeah.
October.
What's the name of that podcast,
It's
Jeff?
called
What was it?
Other Worlds Than These.
There it is.
And I said that
Ooh,
really
dun,
cool
dun,
with
dun,
my
dun.
sinus
No,
infection
you're
voice
done.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
I get a lot more deeper. That'll be gone by the time we actually record that, and then I'll
And
sound
then
like
it'll sound
me
like
again.
Other Worlds Than These.
Yeah, not nearly as intimidating, right?
So I'm
Go
curious
ahead, Elliot. Yeah.
about. Sorry,
No,
I'm
you're.
curious.
Go ahead. Oh, you know what? In that pause, I remembered the Stephen King novel. It's Bag of Bones. Bag of
Okay.
Bones is the one I believe where he kind of talks about that having one in the trunk. I could be wrong because there's so many of them that are about writers.
There are a lot. Yeah.
But that is the book I was trying to think of. It just may not be the right one.
Okay, so I think I have some friends on here watching, but they are writers. So I am curious about the publishing process, or like what your process is, or any advice that you could give them if they're still tuned in.
Yeah, so I think a good way to establish relationships with publishers is through doing anthologies. And publishers will do open call anthologies, usually themed. And the publisher who did my three of my books, the Grimoire and Grimoire book and Hangman and Promise of Plague Wolves, it's called Nose Touch Press. And they did the Fiends and the Furrows. And they also, even earlier than that, did an anthology back in 2015 called Wax and Wane, which was witchcraft stories. And that was my first connection with them. So with Wax and Wane in 2015, and this was just like an open submission call, and I submitted to them, and that was accepted. And then they did in 2018, they did The Fiends and the Furrows, the folk horror anthology, and I did Sire of the Hatchet, and that was accepted. And they, at that point, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do a book with them. And that was my way and into it. And so Grimoire is the book that came out of that. And then we've done two more since. But I think, as far as networking and getting to know publishers, and usually behind the name, there's just a few people, and once you get to know them, that's those can be kind of strong connections to have. And the best way to do that is short stories. I think as a writer, period, you really must write short stories first. Uh, Ray Bradbury is another one of my favorite writers, and he had there's this book I remember reading, and it was like it was 100 stories by Ray Bradbury. Okay, and the man wrote like thousands of stories.
Wow.
It was like
Yeah,
it was
wow.
like this is the top 100, the top 100 Ray Bradbury short stories, and it's unreal, like 1,600-page book, but he wrote this great
Jeez.
introduction to it. And I took that introduction to me, it's like 100 by Bradbury or something like that. And that introduction written by him was I consider it my education in writing totally. Like
Wow.
his advice influenced me more than anybody. And I'm gonna tell you what he said. He said, "You want to write short stories before you tackle novels because you need a lot of successes and a lot of failures." And you want them just quick turnaround. You want failure, 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 success, failure, success, failure, 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 success, because you got to have those little crumbs to keep you going, those little successes, little victories to keep you going. And he said, if you write a novel, it's going to take you 6 months, and if it keeps getting rejected, there are no successes, right? It's just long-term waiting failure. And so he said, you really need to cut your teeth. And his advice was write 1 million words of short stories before you write a novel.
Wow.
and a million words of
Mhm.
short story for a 300-page novel is about 80,000 words. To put that in
Jeez.
perspective of like how many
Wow.
short story 80, so a common short story might be 5,000 words. So
Right.
you're right, a million words. And I did that. Like, I actually wrote a million words of short stories because Ray Bradbury, I was like, well, Ray Bradbury would know. Why would he not
Right.
know? Why not listen to this guy? And I did that. It took me 10 years to write that, at 100,000 words a year of short stories. And I was right. And that works up like 25 short stories a year, like, 4,000 words a piece,
Yeah.
maybe, with varying length. And it took me 10 years to write a million words. And he said, don't go to school for writing. It's not going to help you. Nobody can teach you how to write. There's only one way to do it. It's read constantly and write 1 million words.
Mm.
Wow.
And it's true. I think it's absolutely true. There's no magic trick to writing. It's just like
Mm.
that's like that 10,000 hour rule. Get in there and do it and
Just
write
do
and
it.
write and write and write. Um, and that to me is getting back to I got way off track there, but writing short stories for anthologies is a good way to establish relationships with publishers.
Awesome. And that actually helps segue into my next question. I know that you're also involved with the Scythian Wolf, right?
Yeah,
Tell us a little
yeah.
bit about that, because you guys have an anthology right now that you're looking for submissions for, right?
Right, yeah, well, I wanted to start my own press. I thought that would be kind of a stupid thing to do, like, why not? So just, um, like success rates, less than 1%. So let's give that a shot. Why not? Let's see what happens. But
Why not?
no, well, it's one of those things. It's really just a labor of love on the side, and the Scythian Wolf's going to do historical horror anthologies, and I'm going to do one per year. One per year. And the first one that we're doing, and this is an open call, it's ongoing. If anybody wants to submit a story to this, it's for the First World War. It's called Death's Other Kingdom, which is, if you know T.S. Eliot, the poem, I ripped that
Oh.
off from T.S. Eliot. Don't, but I thought it was cool. And so Death's Other Kingdom, horror tales of the Great War and of World War One. And this is an open call for stories that are 4,000 to 9,000 words long. So I want substantial stories, not just shorts. But the anybody's welcome to submit. And you just go to scythianwolf.com and that's SCY. SCYTHIAN, but that's what the press is, and I'm going to do a different thing each year. I love like ancient Egyptian history, so I'm going to do like an ancient Egypt anthology,
Oh, neat.
and I'm going to do I love like I write about the 17th century, so I was going to do like Louis XIV's France, like Versailles and stuff like that era, and just if since it's a labor of love, my thinking is if it's not very marketable and nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do that. I'm going to fill I'm going to fill this void. I'm going to step in and I would want to read that book, and so I'm going to create those books.
Yeah,
Very
I think that
cool.
sounds fascinating. And when I saw that call, I mean, I'd love to be a writer. Like that's something I've always wanted to do, and I've written lots of things in the past. Like never written a novel that's sitting over there. I've written a lot of short stories that'll never see the light of day, either. Mostly because I lose them, and who knows where they are. So maybe they will see the light of day. Somebody's gonna find them in a trunk and like publish it and be like, "Who wrote this
A trunk
garbage?"
in
But
someone else's house.
exactly, yeah. No, but I think that's fascinating. It actually like sparked me to start thinking of like ideas like what kind of
Well,
horror story would I
you should
tell
do it. You
during
never
World War
know.
One? Well, I'd have to write it between now and November 1st, which is we'll
Like
see if that's the kind
World
of
War One horror. It actually sounds pretty cool.
yeah. No,
That
I
sounds
had an
cool.
idea, so I did come up with an idea. Again, it was
I
just
will.
like would I be able to sit down in
Let's
time?
say when we're looking at this, we want diversity and place and theme and characters and all that. And I think that the toughest way to get into the anthology is writing about trenches at this point. Um,
Right.
no kidding, 3/4 of the stories we've received have
Involved
been about
trenches.
trenches.
Yeah.
So I want stories in the air, and I want stories at sea, and stories in trenches,
Yeah.
because I think that's the first thought that comes to mind
Sure.
with the war is trench warfare. And so for
Right.
stories, I want those, but it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of competition because I'm not
Yeah.
going to, it's not going to be all trench stories.
Right.
So
All trench all the
I
time.
I want like a submarine story, like a German U-boat type of
Ooh,
thing, but
Oh
Mm.
yeah,
that could be interesting.
that started in World War I. Okay, yeah.
I know
I
there's so many things in it, that you could write
Yeah,
about
yeah.
there. And
That's
it
That's
takes place
true. That's very true.
everywhere around the world. It doesn't just take place in France and Germany. They're fighting in Africa, and they're fighting
Right.
in the Middle East, and they're fighting in Russia, and they're fighting all
yeah.
around. So
Well, I will admit the idea that I had does happen in France, but it's not in a trench. So maybe I'll at least.
write
It's
it.
in a
It
it's
takes
in a
place in a little
tranche.
small town.
Yeah, write
It's
it.
see, I'm also a video. I also think in terms of short films, and I'm like I'd rather be a filmmaker than a writer, but I like to write and then film it. And so my it came to me as a short film, so small cast in a kind of claustrophobic setting in France during the war. And I
Not a
had actually
trench.
done some research, and there no trenches, and to some of the old mythology of that area, and how that might be a real thing that came to life. And that's something that I was working on. So we'll see.
When
If
you
I
say
have time and I can make
something,
it happen, I'll try to send
Hey,
it.
cinematic is good, and
Yeah,
stories. I mean, you visualize it. And I'm a movie fanatic anyway, so
yeah,
I love
same.
cinematic stories that I can visualize easily. So if you take that approach,
So
you know,
well, we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see. That's not
Aaliyah,
a lot of
Aaliyah,
time.
there's no poetry submissions, just so you know.
Yeah,
So if you want
it
to write
says that
something,
specifically. So sorry,
I'm
Leah.
looking at just reading through the site here.
That's okay. It is not missing out on anything.
one day maybe. The only thing was with this one, with the first one, I'm trying to keep it compact too. I want to keep the book around 200 pages, so we're probably gonna
Yeah.
get around 8 stories.
Mhm.
Okay.
8 stories, and kind of keep it. I
Yeah,
think
keep it nice
people,
and succinct.
well, anthologies wear out their welcome.
Yeah.
If you're reading
Uh,
a themed collection that's 400 pages, and you're reading the same type of stories over and over again, I think that can get very, very tiresome. So I think 200 pages is about
We
oh,
have
another
some
trench.
friends
max.
that have
Yeah.
published a lot of essay anthologies on different pop culture topics and stuff, and those guys
Right.
have talked about that too. How it's just reading
Yes.
all the submissions and just kind of like trying to weed through what works. I do have a question though that might be on other writers' minds. If you submit to something like this, or if you submit to an anthology, is that still a short story you can publish in your own short story collection? Like I know that Stephen King, a lot of his short stories that he publishes in his own collections have been in magazines and all
Sure.
other different places. So you still retain the rights to do that? Like, how's that work?
Yeah. If when you get a contract for a short story, a red flag, it's a predatory contract if they have perpetual rights.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
if
never
the, if
good.
the, if they ask for perpetual rights, generally what a kind of a clean, safe contract is the people who publish a story will have exclusive rights to that story for 1 year from publication,
okay.
Mm.
Okay.
meaning that they ask, don't post it online,
Hmm.
don't publish it in a book,
So they have a chance
don't
to publish. That's the whole point, right? They
and
want.
and sell it. You want
Yeah.
to say we don't want to we want and for 1 year, and after 1 year, all rights, and this is a good contract. All rights revert back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
All of
Nice.
them go
Okay.
back to you,
Everything.
and
Yeah.
everything goes
Yeah.
back to you. And the that's a standard contract. So if you were to publish this in this World War One book, I'm thinking it's going to come out like May of next year. I would ask that just let me hang on to this until May 2025, and then
Yeah.
it goes back to you can do whatever you want with it at that point.
Interesting. Yeah. I was just
That makes
curious.
sense.
Yeah. I
That
wondered
seems.
how
I
that
mean, that
worked.
it's got to be fair, right? If you want the publisher of the anthology to be able to, include it and make their money and publicize it and spread
That's
the word.
essentially what you're paying for when you buy a short story from somebody is a year. I want this story. This is going to be mine to use for a year, and then it goes back to you. You're just leasing the story. So you don't own the story from the person. You're gonna. I'm gonna pay you to hand this over to me for a year, and then I'll give it back to you.
Right. Cool. Well, Coy, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been fascinating. It's great to talk to you. It was really great to hear some of the kind of behind the scenes of that story. I really appreciate the opportunity to have read it. I think I'm going to have to get a physical copy now.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
and
you.
next time I come down to Huntington, I'm going to find you and get you to sign it. We'll see.
All right. Well,
my mom lives in Weirton now. I don't go to Huntington as often, but I have lots of friends down there. So I'll send somebody to hunt you down to get a signature.
That sounded like a Stephen King novel, Jeff.
I know. Yeah.
It'll be the
look a little bit like Kathy Bates.
I'm going to be
just
looking
if she's
over
carrying a baseball bat or an axe, just run away.
You can't miss me. I'll be the guy walking the huge white dog
right
outside. This monster dog. That's me, probably. Have you seen?
No, frolicking with the deer.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
Making a new video.
That's my top secret.
Right.
Scary movie project.
Right.
There you go.
So tell everybody how they can find you online. Also remind everybody where they can pick up a copy of Promise of the Plague Wolves.
Yeah, so that's my latest novel, The Promise of Plague Wolves, and it is available everywhere. If you want to buy it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, it's all obviously available there. But you can also get it from local bookshops through bookshop.org, and you can order it. And say if you have like a mom and pop bookstore, indie bookstore in your community, they can buy it through that, and it is available that way. As far as getting in touch with me or checking up on what I'm writing, my website is coyhall.com, easy enough, coyhall.com, or the scythianwolf.com. And I'm on Twitter. I'm not going to call it that other name.
Thank you.
Twitter at Coy Hall Books, and I tweet there.
Yes.
And I might retweet
Stick it to the man.
something from you. But at Coy Hall Books there, and Instagram the same at Coy Hall Books. Technically on Facebook, but I don't use Facebook. It's easy. I'm at the Blue Sky place too, trying something out new.
Oh, Blue Sky, yes.
Yeah, some Coy Hall there.
Yeah, we're over there too. We have a World Gone Geek on Blue Sky. I don't think I've actually.
Really?
What do you call it over there? I don't think I've tweeted anything there. I think it's a tweet, all those. I tweet on Threads, I tweet on Twitter, and I tweet on X, and I tweet on
everything.
Instagram.
Everything is a tweet now. It's a tweet or a post.
Yeah,
those are now
exactly.
that's it. It's like Kleenex and tissue.
But yeah, Coy, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
We'd love to. Maybe we'll have you back next year and talk about the anthology when you've got that published out there and stuff like that.
That'd be wonderful.
And you can tell them all about how awesome my story is when I get
it. Yeah, you'll have bragging rights at that point.
That's right.
We'll see.
That's right.
I'm very susceptible to flattery.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can do that.
This is the best non-trench story I've ever read.
Right. I am literally sitting here saying that, oh gosh, 30 days is just not a lot of time to write a short story. And Matt Shigarek is out there somewhere going.
We were just talking about promptly.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
they do it every month.
Dude, we do this every month. Shut up. All right. So if he can do it, he's like
the minimum's 4,000 words. Think of it as 500 words a day. You can knock it out.
Now
in 8 days.
Now I definitely can't do it.
That's smart. That's a smart way to do it.
That is.
That's even worse.
No, I'm gonna give that a try. So I've been trying to do the 5 o'clock thing that you said to get
5
up
a.m.
earlier.
to 7 a.m.
I am a little bit of more morning person. My alarm goes off at 5:30 now, but I get up around 7:30. So I need to get past that part. But then I will be able to write for that. And then I teach at 9:30. So there is time in there. You know what I mean? For me,
you just set your alarm 2 hours
put 500 words out. Yeah, set it for 3.
3:30,
I'm
you'll
not
wake up
gonna
at
do that.
5:30. No?
Yeah, not gonna happen.
I'm just gonna get angry. I'm gonna throw my alarm. Just
Right?
gonna throw
Yeah.
just get
5:30 is already hard. I mean, I right now I wake up, because I'm an old man. I wake up at like, before the alarm
In the middle of
anyway,
the
a little
night.
bit, and then I grab my watch and put it on so that when the alarm goes off, it'll vibrate my watch instead of waking up my
Wow.
wife. So that seems to
Okay.
work out. If I do
Okay,
it 3
technology.
o'clock, it's gonna wake her up because I'm not gonna wake up in time to get the watch. My whole method is like ruined. So
Okay.
we'll
All
see.
right. All right. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
I have to charge it overnight, or I can't wear it to
Correct.
bed, or it'll die.
Correct.
So anyway, there's a
Yeah.
method to my madness.
If you say so.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great show. Again, thank you, Coy, for being here.
Thank you.
What do we have next? Let's see.
I don't know. What do we have next?
I don't remember who's. I think I'm still trying to nail down the guest for the next show, which is in 2 weeks, right here, 9:30 on Facebook
don't hurt him.
and Twitch and YouTube, as we are at this very moment. We
Oh my
also
gosh.
will be. I wanted to remind people. So if you want to see a little bit more about Cleveland Gaming Classic, go to our YouTube channel. We did broadcast live from there, about the length of an actual show, which is an hour and 15 minutes, typically
did.
hour 30. And that was a lot of fun. We did some live commentating on Mario
Kart.
Live
Kart, which
commenting.
was kind of interesting. Yeah. But yeah, so check
Not your
that out
regular
on
degular
YouTube.
commentary.
It's just your regular. Yeah. Check that out. And then don't forget to check out Music Gone Geek, our new music show exclusively for exclusively
One more
for
time.
Spotify subscribers, because if you're not a subscriber, you'll only hear the
don't get the
previews
whole
of
songs.
music, but you get the whole songs if you subscribe. Check that out. It's a lot of fun to go through nostalgic old soundtracks with some of our other guests who have come on. Coy, do you have a favorite movie soundtrack? Like with the pop soundtrack, not the orchestral, but actual songs like the radio songs.
Yeah, not
that you would
score,
hear.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Like songs.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You could be thinking
you
about
really
it.
Did. I
Yeah.
love like these songs like that ended movies in the late 80s, like when they would have like a rap song about the movie. And so like
Oh, yeah.
Teenage
Oh, like
Mutant
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Turtle Power.
Yeah.
I'm going with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's actually a pretty good soundtrack too. We were just watching that movie the other day, the original one. Cool. Then we'll be in touch because we have a podcast that talks about old
That
soundtracks.
discusses
Like-
exactly that.
Yeah.
Waxwork Records puts those out. I collect those.
There you
like
go.
the
See,
Oh,
you need to get
nice.
Wow,
guests on
that's
that show.
phenomenal.
That's
All right.
cool.
Wow.
We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. So check that out. If you're a Spotify subscriber, we'd love for you to follow that. That helps us out, even if you don't listen to. We like you to listen to it too, but we'd like to get followers as well to help get so that more and more people will see it and then listen to it. So follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok. We're gonna start TikToking again. I promise. I think I'm gonna put Aaliyah in charge of that, and then Instagram, all at World Gun Geek. And you can find us there and find out what we're doing and what's going on and communicate, be part of the community. We'd love for you to do that. Thanks again for this episode, Utah and Aaliyah. It's great to have you guys.
Always a
Here.
pleasure.
And thanks for
Always.
watching. We will see you guys in 2 weeks right here.
2 weeks.
Bye. I am waving.
Hey, so am I.